What's going on, guys? Aaron from Top Tier Gaming here, and today I'm coming at you with sort of my ban list, not so much reaction as much as more of a discussion and my thoughts on it, and what the implications are for the format going forward. I know this seems a little late, and that's because every time a ban list comes out, it's like mid-work day for me, so I'm never able to cover it until later in the day, and then I gotta edit it and upload it, so it always comes up a little later for me, but regardless, I do want to just give my thoughts on this list. So before getting into like all the discussion points I want to bring up, I am going to go over the list in case for some reason you haven't seen the ban list by now. But yeah, before we get into that, I do want to let you guys know Discord link down below along with all of our other social media links. Also, I'm trying to climb the 10K ladder, so if you do like this Yu-Gi-Oh content and you want to see more, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps me out and what I do here on the channel. And yeah, let's go over this ban list really quick so that I can then start talking about it, because most of you have definitely already seen this, but I do want to just briefly go over it so it's fresh in everyone's mind. So Curious got banned, which this is good. This is like future proofing. Obviously Curious hasn't been a solid card since Danger Tier Lament, but yeah, I mean, this card is degenerate, and in the future it would 100% be a problem if it didn't get banned, so I'm super fine with this hit. Everyone's favorite, Mystic Mind, finally hit, thank goodness. This is in my opinion, the shining light of the ban list is this. I mean, the bans I think are both fine. Like this, even though it's not a problem right now and there are much bigger threats in the format, it's something that needs to be banned in my opinion. Mystic Mind, definitely #1 enemy of hatred. No one likes this card. Most people don't, but there are definitely some people who are fine with it. But overall, super happy to see this gone. That's it for bans. On limits, we have Herald of Orange Light. Oof, that's all I'm going to say about this one, because yeah, it seems just a little out of touch to me, and Orange Light is like one of the good counters to things for tiers, and it's not like I'm trying to help tier lament with this ban list, but it feels like they just get hit super hard by D-Shifter and like Dweller now with 0 counters, and I think that's a little unfair on the other spectrum of things. So yeah, I don't know about this one, especially me as a Madolche player. I feel like I've just been hurt for no reason. It's such a weird hit, so that's all I have to say about that. And that's the only limit. Semi-limits is Recital Starling. That's super cool because it means maybe I can try to play Bird Up eventually. And then here are some of the big ones. So we have Ptolemaeus, D-Fissure, Tenki. This is not a big one. This just, you know, Zodiac and Tri-Brigade and decks where Tenki's good. Macro and Metaverse. Metaverse makes sense because, I mean, Mystic Mind's no longer on the list, so Metaverse is just like another terraforming. That's a trap card. Now, I do feel like it could still be a problem in the current format with Necro Valley, because that's a really powerful card. It's just another Floodgate Searcher, right? It just gets Necro Valley or Secret Village, so maybe this card is still disgusting, but you know, to briefly go over these, Ptolemaeus, I wasn't playing when this card was popular, so everything I know about this card is from, you know, other people's word of mouth, and I feel like it's a pretty disgusting card because of either Diamond or Infinity. Either one I think are good with this card. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the reason. So that's a little scary. D-Fissure is personally one of my least favorite cards in the entire game since 2010. I am disgusted with this card. It has so many ruling shenanigans that are awful, and it's really unfair. Macro, in my opinion, is actually a little more fair than D-Fissure, which sounds really weird, but this is a purple card. This is like even solid going second into a board half the time, especially this format, so I think this card's actually a little more unfair than Macrocosmos, which is kind of a hot take, I would say, because obviously Macro seems more powerful on the surface, but yeah, this thing is good going first or second. This is only good going first, so that's something to consider. Metaverse scares me a little bit. I know I said in previous lists that it can come back to 3 if Mystic Mind got banned, and here it is. But, you know, thinking about the implications with Secret Village and Necro Valley, it's maybe a card that I don't know if it really needs to be at 3. But yeah, that's briefly going over the ban list, so going over some of the points I wanted to bring up with this. So, talking about the bans, I'm fine with these bans. I know a lot of people obviously wanted things that are problems for this format, like in some people's, you know, they want Dweller banned. I personally don't want Dweller banned, but I can see why people are calling for it, especially in the tier mirror. It's super oppressive. That being said, I think Dweller's more of like a broken card in the format in this format alone. I feel like if you hit the things around it, Dweller's no longer as big of a problem like it has been in the past. The card's been legal since I think 2014. 2013 was Abyss Rising, right? So yeah, it's been fine for 9 years. It's been a solid card, but something you only use in some matchups. I think the fact that we need to ban it now is more of the cause of what's around it. I don't think Dweller really needs to find its place on the ban list. It doesn't enable things like half of these cards, like these two enable things. It's not as oppressive as Shockmaster. It's not as disgusting as these. Like, I feel like these deserve to be here. Well, except that one. That one doesn't deserve it. But like, Dweller I don't think is that bad and deserves to be banned. But what I was trying to say here initially was, I think the bans were fine. It's just we're a little disappointed in the fact that it's not affecting stuff now, which I understand. You know, everyone's brought it up. We always bring it up. Every ban list is, you know, it's a company. They got to make money. But it feels weird to say that, and then they have a Dark World structure deck right around the corner they need to sell, and this is here. So, like, I feel weird this time using the business scheme to explain why they've done certain things, like not hitting Tyr or Ishizu because they need to sell the sets, when they are going to have a harder time, in theory, selling the Dark World structure deck when you can't play Dark World. There's 3 D-Shifter, 3 D-Fissure, and 3 Macro. Dark World is not playable into that. So I did want to bring that up. Like, I feel like the business perspective of things, it is quite a weird argument when it looks like they just contradicted themselves in this one list. But regardless, I'm happy with the bans. There's still some stuff I wish was on here. Why is Scythe not banned? Why is Harp Horror still banned? I mean, things coming off is a little more RNG based with whatever Konami decides to do. Like, I wish Wind Up Hunter was banned, and then we could get Zen Mighty back from, where is he? Right here. Free the boat. Please free the boat. But yeah, so it's more like I'm happy with what's on here. I just wish there was more. And honestly, it's going to be so weird. Talking about Tyr specifically, if they were ever going to ban anything, it's really weird because the way they built Tyr, like, you can't really ban Kit Kalos because it destroys the deck far more than it needs to, and it also inadvertently bans Rule Kalos as well. So you can never hit Kit Kalos in that way. And you can't put her to 1 because she's played at 1. So, like, you can ban a name, and then you probably choose Havnus, but then that's really weird to just ban a name outright. So you have to put, like, 4 cards at 1, it feels like, to really hit Tyr. Obviously, they didn't take that route, but it's something I wanted to bring up. Talking about Orange Light, this one bothered me because it just feels weird. I think the OCG did this. I heard someone else say the OCG put Orange Light to 1. I don't remember who that was, but it might be at 1. I didn't check before this. But yeah, Orange Light hurt me because I was planning to take Madolche to a YCS, potentially, maybe the YCS, who knows. It's a completely different format for YCS Vegas, and I had a regional coming up where I was planning on taking it, and now it's looking less of a nice option because Orange Light randomly got banned. I really wasn't expecting this, so this one was really out of left field. I know this was like some of like the more RNG stuff in the Tyr mirror, where it's like, you set up your board to play into what Tyr should have, and they randomly have like an Orange Light that stops your Dweller or something like that if you didn't set up Crime. And it's really disgusting against Bestials, and like having Orange Light with Mudora or Keldo on your opponent's turn is insanely powerful, but you know, unfortunately they went for this because they're not going to hit the Ishizu cards because of, you know, business, blah blah. So yeah, I guess Orange Light got the axe. This is the hit that upsets me the most on the list personally. That's not true. The Unlimits definitely do. I don't really... Is there anything else? I mean, obviously we wanted, like, Planet at 1. Power of the Elements was only, like, 5 months ago. A little under 5 months ago. So the deck hasn't even had 6 months of being legal, so I guess it makes sense that Parallel Rhino isn't, you know, hit, because normally decks get 6 to 9 months of being playable before they actually get touched. In some cases, a year. And Perlerino, or specifically, you know, Tier Limits hasn't had that time yet. But when you're in the middle of a Tier 0 format, your players are expecting something very different. A lot of people aren't really playing right now. Like, locals numbers, at least at our locals, have definitely been going down. And I hear the same thing from a lot of other people that, you know, a lot of people just don't want to play this format. So in a Tier 0 format, maybe you don't give the deck that much time. I don't know. Like, I'm a competitive player, so normally, like, I just adapt to these things and keep going. but I'm a rogue player, so tier 0 formats really, you know, affect me in a different aspect because it limits what I can play. I really like the open formats. So like obviously we would like to see something here for tier limit, and there's nothing, which I think a lot of people are upset at, but I don't know. I think they thought maybe we'd just be so happy about Mystic Mine we wouldn't point out the problems in the format. Yeah, I mean, I'm super happy about Mystic Mine, don't get me wrong. I shouldn't have to play a random out in my deck anymore. However, they again contradicted themselves again with this list, in my opinion, where they, you know, brought more floodgates back when you're gonna have to play an out to those. So yeah, I don't really understand. We asked for them to remove a floodgate and then they give us 2 in return. It's like Konami is just a Hydra. You cut off one head and then 2 more pop up. It's really, it's a very classic theme they've had since the beginning, I feel. Feels like it's gotten worse in recent times as opposed to back in like the early 2010s. But yeah, here's something I really wanted to bring up was D-Fissure. You know, I've been alluding to floodgates for a little bit now, but it is so strange to me that instead of hitting tier, they decided they gave us a list to counter tier. And that is not what I personally want. Maybe that's something people are fine with. I know a lot of people are not okay with that because these cards stink. These cards are awful. No one likes these cards. I don't understand. Like, the format is bad, so their logic is like, okay, we will counter the bad by bringing in more bad cards to beat the bad. But what you've done is you've just brought more bad. Like, it doesn't, the logic isn't there for me. These cards are so unfun to play against. I hate this card. Like, I don't want to just sound like I'm ranting because obviously they wanted to give us something to fight tier, and this does do that. This does help against tier limits. But I don't like the idea behind releasing more annoying cards to deal with an annoying format. Like, I'd rather them almost not hit tier than bring these cards back. And I know not everyone's going to agree with that mentality. Some people are going to be like, it's fine because we need something to counter tier, but like, these are gross. That's all I really can say about those. But yeah, so, and another thing about these is it makes even the decks that normally counter tier or have a decent matchup, like I was thinking you could play a bunch of different decks with D-Fissure in it to help against tier, right? Like Sword Soul with 3 D-Fissure sounds pretty nice. Like Runic Sprite potentially with Shifter sounds nice. Runic Spellbook with, or not Shifter, Fissure sounds pretty nice. Like, there's a bunch of rogue contenders you could actually play with Fissure to try and beat tier limit, which is maybe their goal. The problem is, what they've actually done is you can name any single deck with D-Fissure as like a tier counter, and no matter what, it's not as good as Fluandereeze. Fluandereeze profits off this card so much. It's such a good card in that deck. And it just becomes where, like, it's not opening up options to fight tier. Like, it's not opening up a bunch of options that counter tier limits. It's opening up one, because if you compare Fluandereeze with any other Fissure deck, Fluandereeze is so much more insane than those, because the engine, if it gets rolling, is insanely powerful, and yes, it bricks, but yeah, Fluandereeze is, I want to say, more unfun to play against than tier limit. So even though it was an idea to hurt tier, it really buffs Flunder, and I do not like that personally either. You know, personally, I think Flunder is a great option in this format. I'm not trying to, you know, offend anyone playing it, but I just don't personally like playing against the deck, and I don't think it's something that needs these. Who knows how the format will adapt, right? Like, are these cards even going to see that much play? Are people going to move off tier in just fear of these cards? Personally, I don't think people are moving off tier. I think Heartbeat might see more play as, like, for sure in the main deck, maybe even multiple copies, and then even more in the side deck. But yeah, I think birds just look insane with this. Like, and not like they're not already a good pick, but it's really hard to justify playing any other deck with Fissure besides Fluandereeze, because it was already probably the best option. Now, I do think Runic is still cool. Yeah, I think Runic is still cool, but yeah. Well, I was probably going to go somewhere else with that. What was I thinking of saying? See, this is what happens when you don't script yourself beforehand. You end up losing your train of thought. Oh yeah, I mean, this is also still interesting. I'm curious to see how this evolves, but yeah, that is sort of my thoughts on this ban list. Let me know down below what you guys think. I feel like I had something else I wanted to say, but I don't remember it, so that's just unfortunate. Let me know what you guys think of the list down below. I did make it seem mostly all bad, but again, I'm super happy Mystic Mine is banned. That's amazing. Personally, I was just sort of peeved by the fact we banned Mystic Mine and brought Fissure back to 3. No, they're not the same card, but in some regards, Fissure is actually worse than Mystic Mine, because to out a Mystic Mine, you really just have to play Cosmic Cyclone, and your opponent doesn't have a board to protect it, because then Mystic Mine wouldn't be right, you know? It wouldn't work. But D-Fissure, you can play after setting up a Baron and, you know, a bunch of Omni negates, and then D-Fissure is there, you can't Cosmic it because Baron will negate. So it's a very disgusting floodgate in that regard. So no, it's not Mystic Mine, but it definitely has some things that make it almost as disgusting. And yeah, that's really my thoughts. So again, let me know what you guys think down below. What you think of the ban list, how you think the format's going to shape. Personally, I think it's looking more still like Tearlament, the movie is what we're in, but with Fluandereeze now making a much more impactful appearance than it already was potentially. I think this orange light hit is so weird, but that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave your thoughts down below and give it a like and subscribe. This has been Aaron from Top Tier Gaming. Bye, YouTube.